All right, everybody. With the visiting New York, or the Reds visiting the New York Yankees next week, we wanted to chat with somebody that's got boots on the ground down there. So I am pumped today to be joined and talk a little baseball, maybe a little life with Jack Jokinen. Jack is co-host of George's Box, a New York Yankees podcast, and author of an upcoming children's book that you have just got to hear about. So Jack, thank you so much for coming on the show today. How are you?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me. So I didn't tell you this when we were prepping. I've been to the most Cincinnati Reds games on this podcast this year, I believe.
Ooh,
I saw them play Monday night in Pittsburgh.
No kidding.
And then
That was the only game of that series worth going to.
And I am going on Wednesday when they play the Yankees.
Listen,
so we booked this, that we were going to do this. I thought, for my day job, I have a client in Pittsburgh that we were going to take to a game in a suite. Someone told me, I just approved it. Someone had said Dodgers. It wasn't until I got to town, and it was the day after we had booked this. And it was it's the Reds. Oh, that kind of works out for me.
Well, usually that doesn't work out for the people watching, hoping to watch good baseball. But you got to see Elly De La Cruz do some work, which is always a lot of fun. And we can talk about him a little bit more later. But before we get into it, Jack, let's kind of introduce yourself a little bit to the folks here. Let them know how you got started with the podcast, Yankees fanhood, and then I want to dive right into the book.
Yeah, so I'm born and raised in the Bronx. So I grew up on the opposite side of the Bronx from Yankee Stadium, place called City Island. It's like a mile and a half by half a mile island. That's more like a New England fishing village. But I grew up, my dad was a Yankee fan. My dad went to a lot of games. His best friend growing up, his aunt was the assistant traveling secretary, George Costanza in real life.
Her
name's Ann Milio. She's passed away for years, but Whitey Ford wrote about her in his book, a lot of legendary Yankees. And so I grew up just with access to the stadium. When my dad was in his 20s, he had one of those cards that would just get you tickets. You just walk up to the box office, which is a dangerous thing because he got thrown out of the same game twice for smoking weed. Got thrown out, went up, got another ticket, came back in, lit up again, got thrown out. So the combination of that, I grew up, just going to games up close, really for free, especially before 96. I'm 39. So, I dealt with those early 90s teams. And I just kept going. Then I went to high school, 5 train stops away, and there was no StubHub then. So it was just guys scalping tickets. One of my buddy's dad was a cop at the stadium. So we would just get off the train. We'd go find his dad. How many do you need? He'd go up to a scalper and be, you scalping those tickets? Got to take them and just give us tickets. So I did all that. And then I worked for Barstool for a little bit as the Yankee guy. And then that got me access. So I've just kind of always been around Yankee Stadium, around the Yankees. And just, when you grow up in the Bronx, and, I'm 11 in 1996. So it's right when you're really starting to understand baseball and it's a little more than T-ball. It was kind of the perfect time for me.
Yeah, that sounds like it. It must have been about as fun of a span as you could have as a sports fan, just getting to watch some of those teams, some of those legends, getting to have so much time in old Yankee Stadium, which I only got to visit once, but was so glad I did in its last season. And I always felt that it was true that you could feel the energy, the presence of all those greats.
Yeah, I love the new stadium. I know there's a lot of people the old stadium. The new stadium's a better stadium. Everything about it is better, except for one thing. So when you go to as many games as I've gone to, you bring a lot of people to their first game. Mm-hmm. And when you go up to the Bronx, there's a little bit of where the hell am I? Especially you bring someone who doesn't really know New York well. I went to college in Philly, so I brought people up. You've never been there. There's a little bit of what the hell did you just bring me to? And then when you go in the stadium, now you walk in, you could see the whole field. The second they swipe your, scan your ticket. You couldn't then. You were in this tunnel kind of. And then you walked out, and then you just saw the greenest grass you've ever seen in your life. You saw this thing from TV come to life. And now it's almost the view is too accessible early in the experience. I wish they had built it where there was just like one area that like gave you that feeling. I wish it was something they had factored in.
Yeah, but considering the pressure that must have been on those folks, they knocked it out of the park. If that's the only real complaint.
Yeah.
We'll talk a little more baseball in a minute, but I do want to get into this book. So the book is titled "A Stray Dog for Christmas: How Suzy Was Adopted," and this book is not about baseball, but it's such an incredible story that we had to talk about it on here. And correct me if I'm mistaken, the book is not out yet. It will be out soon. But when we were going back and forth about getting you on this podcast, I got to watch the video of you sort of retelling the story of how Suzy came into your life. So without giving too many spoilers, can you tell our listeners and viewers just a little bit about the book and the journey that it's taken you on? Because I tell you, when I saw that video, tears were welling up. This is a
Well, I appreciate
legitimate, heartfelt story.
Well, I mean, it's a picture book for kids, so I can kind of spoil it.
Fair enough.
Suzy's around here somewhere. Actually, I think she's upstairs because my daughters are going to bed, and she's there for story time. So yeah, like December 2019, we had one dog, George, legal name Jorge Pausada. This will all start to make a lot of sense really soon. How like psychotic I am, and I host George's Box podcast. So we have George. We have a 1 month old, like 1 month to the day. I walk George. We lived in Philly, and it's a winter storm. And like it's not rain, it's raining, it's not snow, it's just like kind of starting to kick up. So I come in and I'm a tired dad. I'm a month in, umbrella, raincoat, wet dog, all that stuff. And so I closed my door, my front door, and it turns out like the latch didn't go all the way and catch. It just kind of wedged shut, but I had an electric handle lock. So I heard that go and I didn't think anything. About 4 a.m., my wife wakes me up and goes, "The baby's fine, but there's a dog in our house." And my daughter had spit out her pacifier for the first time onto the floor. My wife had to go get a new one. And I thought it was postpartum. I was like, "Yeah, babe, George is right here. Just you get back in bed. I'll take care of it." And there was another dog in our house, just this injured, sick, like little dog. Doors are closed and locked. Windows are closed and locked. Have no idea how this happened. I searched the house real quick. And then I went to security footage, and it turned out the storm blew the door open. A drunk guy walked by who I'd never met before, one of my neighbors, and saw the door open and knocked and yelled. Didn't see the dog, just pulled the door shut, trapped Suzy inside. And so, yeah, like 4 a.m., I'm the kind of person who will tweet if I was on a plane when it's going down, like get that last tweet off. So I was like, I just found this dog in my house in case I get murdered. And Pat McAfee was on his way to college game day. And we follow each other from Barstool. And he just tweeted like, "Sounds like you got another dog." And then Randy Scott was up doing Sports Center. And he was like, "Yep, you got 2 dogs." And so then it just started to go kind of viral in like the middle of the night. And after this happens, like you don't go back to sleep. So I called animal control at 8:01, like as soon as they opened, and they said, "Oh, you just bring it in at 11. We'll take care of it." And I was like, that doesn't sound good. Called our vet, who we weren't really happy with, and they just came and gave us the like, "There's no room at the inn. Like, we got nothing for you." So I found another vet, an emergency vet, drove across town, no chip. And it turns out it's finders keepers on dogs if they don't have a chip. Like I don't know how this works. And she had infections in all 4 paws. Had to have 19 teeth removed, heart murmur, fleas, ticks. Yeah, because so you try to figure out like where this dog come from, right?
Yeah,
because it's like she's clearly been on the street. Like she didn't just leave. At first, at 4 a.m, you're half asleep and you see she's so small. She weighs close to 40 pounds now. She weighed like 17 then. So like really bad shape. And you're just like, where this dog come from? Luckily, as the story goes viral, people are talking about it at the post office. My mail lady is like, "Oh yeah, no, they're on my route. Like great couple." And then another male person's like, "Oh, I saw that dog on this street with a homeless guy, like tied to a shopping cart." And like, that's how we pieced together kind of where she came from, was like hearsay through the post office.
the way it used to be done.
Yeah. So we ended up like, obviously we kept Suzy. And as it was like going by about 11 a.m., we're back from the vet. We have an idea of what's ahead of us. We're going to be all right. But a bunch of people had said, like, if you can't keep her, I'll take her, or you're going to need money for the medical bills. I didn't know what the medical bills would be. So I made like a video kind of summarizing it quickly. And I said, some people have asked, here's my Venmo, but like, we'll be all right. We ended up getting like $42,000. So we took care of all Suzy's medical needs. And then so she needs a name.
Mm-hmm.
So in 2007, Roger Clemens came out of retirement. And there is a famous video clip of Susan Waldman, the Yankees radio announcer, going, oh my God, Roger Clemens is in George's box. He's in George's box. Look in the dugout. Jorge Posada is smiling. So I named my dog Susan Putman for Susan Waldman, the first woman to be a regular radio announcer for a major league team, Radio Hall of Famer. Good example for my daughters. And so I've got Jorge Posada, George's box, and Susan Putman because I like a psycho, like just hooked onto that moment in Yankee lore. Yeah, and so we made an Instagram for her. I'm, continuing to go viral. I spend like a week on the news pretty much. The Dodo made the video you saw. It's got like 100 million views across all their platforms. And maybe like 2 days later, someone just reached out and was like, hey, I saw you on the news. I adopted this dog because of you, with a picture of the dog. And I was like, do you mind if I share it? They were like, of course. And then the next day, someone else. And so about 6 months in, we're about 100 adoptions we had inspired, and Suzy's going to be healthy. So we know we don't need all this money, extra money. So I just started giving the money away. I built a website, and if you adopt a dog or a cat, I'll give you $100 to help offset the costs. And we did 366 adoptions in 366 days for the leap year. And yeah, just started a lot of dog families. People have continued to adopt. We've kept up with a good amount of them. We posted all of them online. And, when you have that kind of following, a lot of people ask for a children's book. So it took some time to make it happen. But yeah, coming out on September 3rd is a Stray Dog for Christmas, How Suzy Was Adopted. It's available everywhere books are sold. You can, you look on Amazon. If you just Google a Stray Dog for Christmas, if you go to straydogforchristmas.com, there's a cool like movie trailer type thing they put together. It'll be in Walmart, Barnes and Noble, like in stores, everywhere online, a couple other places in store. We've still got, like, what do we got? Like 2 months. So the people who do the book stuff are doing the book stuff, and figuring out where it'll be. It's learning an entirely new industry that I never thought I would be in.
Yeah, as if you weren't busy enough with a couple small kids. There's lots to unpack there. First off, I want to let people know that the link to buy the book will be in the show notes. I will also go ahead and put the link to the video in there, so they can learn about it the way that I did. At least see that video. It tugs at you. It's incredible. But there's a few things I want to talk about. One, what are the odds? What are the odds that it
I
ends
don't get
up
murdered?
that
Like,
that
that's
was where I was going?
what the odds are.
The
I lived
hero
in Philly.
neighbor is one of my favorite characters in this saga.
So here's the thing. Super nice guy, Steve. Steve told me at that time he had battled addiction. He said, if 2 years earlier, if this happened, I rob your house and I probably hurt your family. I'm on a path to try to be a better person. I've been working on myself. And so he moved away. He's doing well. He lives in Minneapolis, I believe. We're friends like on Facebook and stuff, but like we hung out a bunch of times. I found him. I did the whole like local Facebook group. Like, here's a screenshot. Anyone know who this guy is? And I think he had like kind of a strained relationship with his parents due to his addictions. But next thing you know, he's on the news with me because I was like, hey, I'm going to do these interviews. Do you want to come? Kind of an experience. Like, you're not, it's not that I'm like used to it, but like I'd been on TV before. I know how cool it is to be on TV. Wanted to like share that with him. And that helped, mend some fences in his family. So, hopefully, that makes him happy. It makes us happy to play that role. And just like, it could have gone so much worse. And that was really like the beginning motivation of this was I messed up. It could have gone really bad. I'm very fortunate that it didn't. I'm very fortunate to be in the position that like I had the followers. So like, something started to happen and just trying to make the most of it by, saving a bunch of dogs. I'm now doing like tours of schools of
Mhm.
like speaking engagements. So I just did one before the end of the year to like figure out like kind of what the act is almost.
Sure.
But yeah, no, now I'm doing like 4 schools, like right where I live. We've got some other school districts talking, just trying to set up for me to go in, and everywhere from like kindergarten where it's like, I'm just going to read the book and like dogs are cool, to, getting up to like 6th grade and just talking about like the process of writing a book and like
Yeah.
all the edits that you go through. I recently spoke at a 4th grade and they were writing podcast scripts. And so the teacher asked me to like just talk about like when I wrote this, I thought it was perfect. And then, 16 hours of Zooms of just analyzing every word on every page. Now we have a book.
That's pretty darn incredible. It's we get fed so much negativity every day in our lives that when a story like this comes along, it makes you feel a little bit better about humanity, and then to see that you didn't just take this viral thing and capitalize on it in the most obvious of ways. You did a lot of good with it. Like I said, all those 366 adoptions in 366 days, taking the extra money after Suzy's medical bills and getting that back out there to the people. It's just incredible. It says a lot about who you are. And, I appreciate you coming on here and sharing the story. It was incredible. And we'll highly, highly recommend that everybody picks up this book. I am certainly going to get my copy. And if it is garbage, I will review it on this podcast. But I don't think that's going to be the
I'm
case.
actually they put in the mail today. Like I have one behind me if anyone's like seeing the bit. See, I get used to which way I'm pointing. That's like a soft cover, like an early reader. Because I was like, I have this gig, like not gig. I'm going to the school. Like I need the book. They're actually putting in the mail the first like official like hardcover. They put it in the mail for me today. So, in like a day or two, I'll have like the first one of it, which is it's really cool. It's a lot of work over, it'll be like almost 5 years to make it happen. But having young kids, like I've the first reason I wrote the book was I only had one kid. I wanted her to be in a book. My father-in-law happened to write Boardwalk Empire, which became the
Oh,
HBO show. He was a lawyer who just wrote a
mhm.
historical book that then Mark Wahlberg got and brought to Martin Scorsese and then to HBO and became that. But like, that's not what he does professionally. It didn't help me get a book deal, or I did it all on my own separately. But a lot of the characters in the TV show are named after my in-laws. So like my wife was one of the characters in the show. I think it's a cool thing she has. And I wanted to try to create that for my oldest daughter. And now I have a younger one. I need everyone to buy books so I can write another book. Suzy gets a sister.
I love it. And those kids are not going to be cheap to raise, maybe
No.
potentially go through college one day. So, folks, get out there, buy the book. We will have every opportunity on all of our show notes. We'll share links and we'll be all over Twitter. We'll sell it from our show account because mine doesn't have many followers because, that stuff. But we'll do what we can to get the word out here. And I
I
appreciate you
appreciate
coming
it.
on to talk about it. But I guess we should talk a little bit of baseball because our teams are going to play each other in a few days. We are recording this on Thursday night, and we start a series on July 2nd, if I'm not mistaken. Early
I think
next
it's the
week.
first, right? Then we start Monday.
Monday. Yeah, then. So we
Yeah.
got that early next week series. The Reds are going to New York, and the teams have only played 38 times in Major League history, which
I guess that makes sense.
shout out to interleague play, I guess. But when you think about two franchises that have had the history that these two have, it seems like a low number. Now, can you
There are
guess?
so many things in interleague play that, like, now that it's becoming the every year back and forth, that you really like. The Dodgers were just in New York. They hadn't been there since 2016, but it felt like we were there every year. And it's just like, as cool as interleague was, like when they first came over, it was clearly like not a good fit. The fact that like
Yeah.
the Reds and the Yankees have not played enough.
Yeah, we have battles about this all the time between the younger and older generations of Reds fans on this podcast about that they love the fact that you always see these teams in the World Series, that it meant something, that division championships meant something. And you got guys like me that just want to see all the players and want to see all the teams, and 1,000 wild card spots, so the Reds have a chance to make the playoffs. 7th time in my life. But yeah, in those 38 games, can you guess who's winning the all-time
I would
series?
assume it's the New York Yankees.
Yeah, you're right. They are leading the all-time series 23-15. They lead the playoff matches 8-5, matchups 8-5. But I am proud to say the Cincinnati Reds are currently on a 4-game playoff win streak against the New York Yankees, dating back to that glorious, glorious sweep in 1976.
Well, there you go. We're in trouble now.
Am I allowed to gloat about that? I don't think I'm allowed to gloat
I
about
think
that.
I'm wearing the 1977 World Series hat, so I'm off by a year.
Yeah, you got it next year. I guess y'all redeemed yourselves a little bit. In 2024, however, these teams find themselves going in pretty different directions as we approach the midpoint. So I guess I'll ask you the question I ask everybody first off is, what are the vibes like in the Bronx right now?
Oh, the vibes are, listen, we have the second best record in baseball. We are by just 1 game behind. We are in first place. Aaron Judge has 48 home runs already. Garrett Cole's back. If a meteor hit the earth right now, we would all be happy. We were all so miserable because we're 2-8 in our last 10. We just got swept by the Mets. We lost 12-2 last night. We lost 17-5 last week to the Orioles. The Red Sox blew the door off us 1 game. I bought a pizza oven when we lost 17-5 because I was just sad on the internet. And I tweeted, like, I saw a deal for a pizza there. I quote tweeted and it was like, the Yankees just made me buy this. And my wife thought it was a joke until a pizza oven showed up at the front door. And I call it my sad boy pizza oven now. Like, the vibes are not great. And it's kind of an interesting thing because, and I don't mean this in a like arrogant, shitty way towards Reds fans, but I imagine like there's to a certain extent, like a numbness to being a Reds fan of just like the expectations aren't too high. We get an exciting player. That's fun. We make a run, to a playoffs every once in a while. That's kind of fun. For the Yankees, there's just so much like, like I said, I grew up through the whole dynasty. I'm used to winning. There's a whole other group of Yankee fans who are like 27 rings, bro, who like there was 1 World Series when they were 4 years old. So it's a totally different experience. Like I am fiending for a World Series. And even though we had a stretch where, we went like 8-2 and gained no ground, and then we're 2-8 and losing no ground. We're winning when the Orioles win. We're losing when the Orioles lose. It's 162 just individual pieces of misery. And that's just being a baseball fan.
Yeah, that sounds, maybe we're not quite so dissimilar, Reds and Yankees.
No. My expectations are just much higher. You deal with it a lot better is really what it is.
We talk about it quite a bit, whether or not it's better to be a fan of a team like the Reds who hardly even disappoint you anymore with the lack of success, or be a fan of a team like the Yankees, the Dodgers, or somebody that expects to win year in and year out. And then when you don't win the whole thing, the season's a disappointment. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. I've always just assumed watching a winning team beats watching a losing team 10 times out of 10.
I mean, since 93, like I haven't seen a losing team. So I was like 8 years old. So I've seen us not make the playoffs, I think twice.
I hate
so
you.
Like, since 96. So it really is like, I don't know anything but winning, but it's not winning enough. So when you get there and you get to the ALCS and you lose and Chapman's smirking, like you've made it further than so many fans could dream. And it's like the worst day of my life.
Fair enough. I wouldn't wish this fanhood on anybody, but it's just a different type of sports stress.
And I think, coming into this series, so we're in, I just got the first pitch notification. We're in Toronto. So we're fighting on foreign shores for the next 4 days. And, that's a tough place to play. It's tough to play at the Rogers Center now. It's tough to play there. The dome, the turf, it's never great for big guys like Judge. So who knows what's going to happen over these 4 games. there's a chance that you guys come into town and we're pretty much a corpse, that you guys get to, shock the world every day, or we're coming at home angry and you guys are in trouble and we're going to take it out on you.
Well, the Rebs have been a walking corpse for pretty much since opening day. We are missing 4 of our projected starting position players that don't look like they're going to be back at all. I think 2 of them are already confirmed out for the season. It's been brutal. So we've just been watching Ellie De La Cruz. That's what we do for fun now. Our pitching staff's been pretty good, and we can talk a little bit about that in just a minute. But the vibes are not
to De La Cruz real quick.
Yeah.
That's a player that I'm so jealous of, because there is a certain atmosphere when you play for a franchise like the Reds, where there's not high expectations, where you just get to come out and be an athlete and like be a kid playing a game, which is every highlight I see of him is that's what he's doing.
Yeah.
You don't get to do that in New York. You don't get to come up as a rookie and have fun. It's all the pressure in the world. And like, I think people would play better if they could get that level of like freedom to just be themselves. It's a thing I often say about these young guys.
He gets a lot of flack from Reds fans, and that's one thing that some stars will even say about Cincinnati. One of the reasons that they love it in Cincinnati is because you're an everyman. You can walk down the street. It's not crazy. You don't have people yelling at you all the time.
Yeah.
So he's been polarizing in his own way, but it would be on a different planet if he was in Cincinnati or if he was in New York.
Oh, yeah.
We were going to do a little segment here called 3 Up, 3 Down, where we just kind of tell each other 3 things that our respective fan bases should watch out for in this upcoming series. We can skip over to that because my first thing was Ellie De La Cruz. So since we're on the topic, I'm excited. I like interleague play because it means y'all get to watch him in person. He's special, man. Y'all know a little something about great shortstops in New York.
Yeah, but he strikes me as the kind of guy. Now, I haven't watched a lot of him play, and baseball is a tough sport to do it in, but he strikes me as a guy who can take over a game. Like, he can go out there and win a game on his own by playing great defense and then getting on base, swiping a bag, swiping another bag, sac fly, he scored, hit a double, hit a triple, so that's like one of the things I like about interleague play to a certain extent, to see so I just get a little familiar with the people who are going to be in trade rumors as they get into their last 2 years of control. Like, every good player is going to be mentioned with the Yankees. So it's a good opportunity to get an idea of who they are.
Yeah, 100%. That's actually one of my topics. So what was your first thing that Reds fans should watch out for when they get to do?
Aaron Judge, if you throw it over the plate, he's going to hit it to the moon.
Yeah, let's go on this Aaron Judge heater that he's been on.
I know, you see a lot of Aaron Judge highlights, if you're just a baseball fan, I'm sure everywhere. But what he's doing right now, I'll admit, in April, I was like, there's got to be an injury. Like, he was so off. I didn't think it was like he just, it wasn't Space Jam. He didn't lose all his powers. He just did not have, something was wrong. And my issue with him, so I wanted to trade Aaron Judge for years. I was we need to trade Aaron Judge. Do not sign him to a long-term contract. I don't like the contract. We have him. I'm happy to have him. We're paying him $40 million a year. That's a lot for a guy who's 6'8", has a lot of injuries. It's a tough frame to keep healthy. And so I thought that's what this is. I was like, there's got to be an oblique. He's trying to push through because this is, we call it the Soto year. This year's the Soto year. Mm-hmm. So, it's got to be an injury. He's trying to push through. And then the calendar flipped to May, and he is just on fire. And he doesn't have a ton of protection behind him. He's got Stanton, but Stanton's a shell of himself, and now he's injured. But with Soto hitting in front of him, with Volpe getting on base a fair amount, like, they've told Volpe, if you get on base to lead off the game, don't steal anymore, because don't take opportunities away from these guys.
Yeah, sure. Don't open up first base.
Yeah, and so he's, creating. They're creating a lot of opportunities for Judge to see some good pitches, and he's mashing. It's incredible. The hot streak that he's been on, because even these games where we're getting blown out, it's like, oh, there's a 2-run monster shot. He hit a ball 113 miles an hour last night. Like, insane.
Jeez. Yeah, I pull up the stats. Since May 1st, Aaron Judge, 5.1 FWAR, 24 home runs, 30 on the season, 24 since May 1st. And since May 1st, 1.412 OPS. Dear God, man.
His 6 home run April, which many people would die for. We were like, he's got to be on his deathbed. That's got to be what's going on here. He's probably going to pass away soon.
Start saying your goodbyes. You did mention Giancarlo Stanton, and I just got to throw some hate out for Giancarlo. This is not while he's with the Yankees, but he absolutely robbed Joey Votto of a second MVP in 2017. It was garbage.
He had 59 home runs.
Go look at the rest of the numbers. Okay. All the rest of them.
Well, the problem is Brian Cashman didn't look at the rest of them, and he saw 59 home runs and traded for him, and he's played like 30 games since.
Yeah. He was otherworldly.
I know I'm throwing off our the run of show here, but can we talk Joey Votto for a second?
We can talk Joey Votto for the rest.
How much fun was Joey Votto? I wanted the Yankees to try to trade for him a couple of years ago. Maybe it was last year when it was like clear his time in Cincinnati was coming to an end, and we had an opening instead of re-signing Rizzo. I wanted Votto. Just like as his career's gone on, like such an interesting guy. Such a fun guy. Like the statistics of like never popping out to the infield is like crazy. Played out, MVP type player. It's unfortunate he's not like actively playing right now. I think he hit a home run in an extended spring training game and then stepped on the bat and like rolled his ankle.
Yeah, that's what happens when he is unfamiliar with the dugout, which he would not have been if the Reds would have picked up the option. We are probably the most pro Joey Votto podcast out there. We absolutely adore the guy. The best player for an entire generation, multiple generations of Reds fans. The way he went about his business and never, ever complained.
Was never a distraction off the field. Like I never heard of anything.
He couldn't have been less. He couldn't have been less of a distraction. And it was so interesting watching him come out of his shell these last few years because he was notoriously reserved. And closed off. Always just Mr. Cliche. Say the right thing, do the right thing. Always did the right thing. And then something happened, and he just decided to open up a little bit and let all of us see into his world. And it turns out it's the most fascinating world there's ever been.
Just like doesn't he like take the subway to a chess league? Like just very,
just
like as if he didn't
dressed
make
in head to toe, like Gucci velour and like fake grills. So we are we still love Joey. We always will. We're rooting for him. It broke our hearts when the Reds not only didn't pick up the option, which I get the money thing, but the Reds don't spend money, so they have it. But then also not even to try to re-sign him. We think it was a front office malpractice.
Yeah, no, it's tough. Like when I saw he signed with Toronto, I was like, well, I hope he has a good extended spring training and like they trade him because I don't want to cheer against Joey Votto. The like you said, the way he's come out of his shell the last couple of years has been really exciting to see.
Yeah, so we're praying he gets back soon, and we can root for him, even though it's going to be gross to watch him in blue. All right, so my second thing up for 3 Up, 3 Down is, you get to be there for the Frankie Montas triumphant return.
So there's a common saying on George's box. A lot of people may not remember this, but Frankie Montas was a Yankee. He was on the Yankees. I think he played like 3 games for us. We let him throw like 2 innings at the end of last year. And then I think you guys are paying him like $10 million or something like that. Like an obscene amount of money for what a bag of shit he is. At least like for what he was with us. Like one of the all-time bad trades that we've made. So every once in a while his name comes up and I'm like, don't forget Frankie Montas was a Yankee.
Yeah, it was a big deadline acquisition for you guys. He was kind of your big move in 2022 deadline.
Yeah.
8 games that year, barely won the next. The experience in Cincinnati it's been something. He's taken no-hit bids into the 7th, and he didn't make it out of the first the next start. The veterans seem to love him, but the production's been that of a mediocre 4th or 5th starter. So when he gets right, he looks great, and hopefully he is good Frankie whenever he plays against y'all.
Hopefully he gets shelled. We need it. Yeah, every once in a while I'll catch he's taking a no-hitter in the 7th inning. I miss all the games that he stinks. Like I just pulled his stats up. Like I'm glad he's performing this bad.
Well, that makes one of us. Classic Reds big splashy offseason move though. 1 year with a mutual option for the next, and here's however many millions of dollars. All right, what you got next?
Ben Rice, our new first baseman,
Mm-hmm.
traditionally a catcher, started playing a little first base in the minors, been tearing it up in AA and AAA. Came up with Rizzo being on the IL. Hasn't figured out the power yet at the major league level, but the power's real. It's been all throughout the minor leagues. And if there's like a get right series, I feel like it's the Cincinnati Reds. I'm not trying to be rude, but I feel like that's a situation. I feel like he could really break out there. And the other thing is like, now I'm 39. Like these are kids. So Brett Gardner was officially the last Yankee older than me. They'll never, I don't think they'll ever be a Yankee older than me. I think there's like 6 major leaguers older than me at this point. This kid, he hit his first base hit. It was an RBI single. And he was smiling to the edges of his face. Like he was just so happy, so excited. He's not playing afraid. Like Anthony Volpe has to play afraid. Like, cause he's from the New York area. He went to, spring training as the third option and then ended up the opening day starter last year. So like there was a pressure that I don't think Ben Rice is feeling. And so I look for him to sort out soon. I mean, I'd love him to figure it out in Toronto, but I feel like coming back home after that first road trip, he can get things going against you guys.
Yeah, I've had my eye on him for a little while now. He has a chance to be special. All right, my last thing is it's a sore topic amongst Reds fans, considering the high hopes that we had going into this season and the lackluster play so far. But could this be some trade deadline auditioning when the Reds come into town? We're still not sure if they're going to be buyers or sellers, but considering they were,
I mean, you guys are 10.5 games out of first place. You guys got to sell.
They are, but they're only like 2.5 games out of the wild card spot. Yeah. So last year they were in first place at the deadline, and all they did was get a lefty reliever. So they historically have not made very splashy deadline moves, and I'm not optimistic it's going to get any better this year. The injury bug has just been brutal. But if they do sell, they've got a couple pieces. They got Frankie Montas. Could he want to come back to New York? I doubt it. I don't think they want him back. Nick Martinez, who's been pretty rocky, but when he has been used as a reliever, which is what they needed him to do, they just had to start him a couple times out of necessity. He's been really, really good. His numbers as a reliever have been fantastic. The two of the more interesting ones, though, are Jeimer Candelario, the Reds' other big offseason signing. He has been, there was for Aaron Judge, he might be the hottest hitter in baseball for the past month and a half. He's been fantastic, and he's on a pretty affordable deal if somebody wanted to come and make a Godfather offer. But for me, the most interesting piece is Jonathan India. Our former Rookie of the Year was all over the rumor mill this offseason until a bunch of injuries and suspensions and whatnot kind of made him indispensable. But if the Reds are out of it, it wouldn't surprise me if he was a name that starts getting bandied about a bit. He's up to a 764 OPS. He's walking at an elite rate and somehow has turned himself into an average defender. So with your boy Gleyber Torres not exactly ripping the cover off, could you see the Yankees making a play for somebody like India?
Here's the situation with the Yankees. There are 3 bases and home plate. Everyone who plays every one of those positions stinks if they're our starter. Rizzo stinks. Luckily he's out. We got Ben Rice. Gleyber Torres is the most 50-50 player in the history of baseball. You watch one game, you could be like, this guy is in the Hall of Fame. You watch the next game and you're like, oh, this is the first time this person has played a baseball game in their life. It's not happening this year. We need to make an upgrade somewhere. I think it's most likely second base. Third base is also an option because like DJ LeMahieu is just a shell of himself.
Yeah.
He doesn't have an extra base hit this year. We've got some young guys who just like aren't going to get it done for the playoffs, I don't think. So the idea of like being able to not only trade for another second baseman, but from what I know of Jonathan India, he'd have to cut his hair and shave, which that's always so fun for me. Like I have a beard, but like I'm a big fan of the no facial hair rule for the Yankees. And I love when people have to shave. When they get traded here and they have to shave, like Montes had to shave. Love it.
I would be curious to see if his wife stayed with him.
A lot of guys become mustache guys in New York.
Oh yeah, he could rock the mustache for sure.
Yeah,
He'd pull that off.
that's normally like the go-to is they just go mustache. We had Matt Carpenter a couple of years ago,
Oh yeah,
and he had like an elite
he had a
mustache.
mustache. That thing was Hall of Fame caliber.
Yeah,
Yeah, I can
yeah.
see. I don't necessarily want Jonathan India to get traded, but I could see a team like the Yankees targeting someone like that that's got some team control, some pedigree, and if you're
I
a smart team, you have to at least be having these conversations.
I think the issue is like we have so many middle infielders like in our
Yeah,
system who are like maybe going to be the next thing. One of the biggest issues like Yankee fans see is that we value our prospects way differently than other teams do. Like we're not in a ton of these huge deadline deals. Like, yeah, we went out and got Soto in the offseason. And it's a walk year. We didn't have to give up a ton. But we hold on to so many pitchers and so many middle infielders that end up turning into nothing. So it'll be interesting to see, like, do we decide to move on from some of those guys and like package something up to get someone like in India? I don't know, like what's he making a year?
he just signed a small extension to buy him out of a couple RBs. I think it's like 2.5 mil, 4 mil a year, something like that.
Oh, that would be a steal because we're paying like 15 million to Glaber. Yeah, he makes like 5 million next year, 3.8 this year. Like, yeah, that would be great to not have to think about that for a couple of years. I don't know if we're in play yet. I haven't, we get tied to everybody who kind of becomes available.
Sure.
But that's our biggest area. Our two biggest areas are upgrading the bullpen, which isn't far from where it needs to be. It's pretty uneasy because Clay Holmes pitches to contact. And as Yankee fans, we're used to strikeouts between, Rivera for forever and Chapman. We're not used to contact. And when you've got Gleyber Torres can't play second base at all. Third base defensively hasn't been great. Volpe's really good, but even Rizzo's been shaky this year. Like pitching the contact doesn't help us.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, all I know is I'm going to start a band called Jonathan India's Future Mustache. So keep your eyes peeled for that. All right, what's your third thing that Reds fans need to be watching out for?
So you guys miss Cole because he's pitching on Sunday. You will get to see Luis Gil. Luis Gil he came up in 22. Then he had to go have Tommy John, pitched 4 innings last year. And then due to Cole being injured, ended up finding himself in the rotation. And up until like a rough start last time out, like he's close to starting the All-Star game. Just throws absolute gas. Like I think he's Dominican, got a tattoo like at the base of his neck, comes out ready to fight and just throws absolute heat. If he doesn't stick as a starter, I could very much see him being a dominant closer. But it's a different look that we haven't really had as of late. We have Cole, but then beyond that, it's been a lot of like, oh, Nestor Cortez does like quirky like leg kicks and he's got also a mustache.
Great
so, like,
mustache, yeah.
Weird. Yeah. Rodon has been struggling. We're down 5-0 right now. He gave up 5 runs in like the first inning. So, in the first inning, he sucks. So he'll could play a big part of our future. So it would be cool for you guys to get to see him. Awesome.
Well, that'll do it for 3 Up and 3 Down, a segment that we just came up with today that we made it sound official. A couple quick things before I let you get out of here, Jack. I want to ask, we loved Aaron Boone in Cincinnati. He wasn't the best ball player by any means, but definitely a fan favorite. I got to see one of my cooler in-person moments was a 2-home run Aaron Boone game when he was struggling. He was struggling bad. And you know how the Boones are. If you they always yell "Boo" out there, but they're saying Boone. Well, he's playing so bad that they were not saying the N and the E at the end of that. They were legit booing him. And he answers the boos by hitting a game-tying home run in the 9th. And then I think it was the 12th, a walk-off bomb. And it was really, really cool. And I will never forget it. It was a crazy rain delay, but we stuck around. I remember rolling up a paper airplane and it going into the visitors' dugout, which is another one of the shining achievements of my life. But I'll tell you what, I tried to figure out exactly what game that was. And turns out if you search for anything involving Aaron Boone and walk-off, you don't get any Reds highlights.
True.
How do y'all like Aaron Boone in New York?
Aaron Boone hit a really good home run in a year that we didn't win the World Series. I think Aaron Boone was great on baseball tonight. I think he's a very funny guy. We have a stat on my show. Wham, wins above Monkey. If I put a Monkey in there and gave him this roster, how many wins would they get comparatively? Now, Aaron Boone has been much better this year at managing the bullpen, making smart decisions. It's almost like, because he's in a contract year, like maybe he is taking the reins back from the front office, because part of when they were going through that interview process, it was reported with everyone who they were meeting with, like Brian Cashman and the analytics guys want to make most of the decisions. They want to hand you the lineup that you're going to put out there, and you're supposed to connect with the young guys in a way Joe Girardi couldn't. I don't think that's really happened. Like Clint Frazier flamed out, Gary Sanchez flamed out, Glaber's flaming out. Judge has turned out all right, but for the most part, like a lot of guys haven't worked out. So I don't think he like motivates the team very well. I think he struggles to hold them accountable. Again, nice guy, but I don't think he's it. I would like us to move on from him if we don't win the World Series. You just get kind of tired of the same guy giving you the same tired answers that you feel like lack accountability.
Yeah, this our audience is going to agree with you there. I'll go ahead and say it here as well. I want the Reds to fire David Bell if we don't win the World Series.
There you go. Hot take.
It's like a fair take. Awesome. Well, let's take it home real quick. Predictions for the series. How do you see it going?
We need to at least get 2 out of 3. Like, depending on how Toronto goes, with this first game, like, we may need a sweep. We need kind of that get right. We had really prided ourselves on, we made it through March, April, May, only having lost like 1 series. We've gotten swept a couple times now. We're losing series left and right. We had hit like a rough patch, and you play the Twins and you sweep the Twins. And the Twins are always like, that's where we go to feel better. That's our fallback. Like, that's our side piece when things are rough at home. But maybe the Reds could be that too. Maybe you could be what makes us feel good. Because we need it somewhere. We need to get like some kind of rhythm going that the team just like doesn't have right now. They just don't seem like super into it. The errors start to compound themselves. So I think, we need to at least take 2 of 3. I really think we probably need a sweep. I do think the Yankees go on to win the division as the season goes on. I don't think the Orioles are built to last. We may not be either though. But I do think like we can hold out. We can win the division. One of the big things with getting Cole back, and then we should get Stanton back in like 3 weeks, like kind of coming out of the All-Star break, and we'll have an idea where Rizzo is. Then you figure out like who your team is and like what you need to use the second half of the month to improve on. And we just haven't had that yet. We haven't had everyone in the same room at the same time because of Cole's injury to start the season.
Yeah, that makes sense. We've been in a similar boat. I don't feel great about this series for 1,000 reasons, but our best pitchers this year have been Hunter Green and Nick Lodolo. You guys missed both of them. I think we're starting TBD in game 1, last I saw. Andrew Abbott in game 2. Take some time to watch that game if you can. We love him around here. He was a rookie last year and has picked up where he left off. Does it all by deception and location. Gets a lot of strikeouts despite not having a ton of velocity. So he's a fun guy to watch. But if the Reds win the series, I'll be over the moon. If they win 1 game, I will be content. And if they get swept, then I'll talk about it on a podcast. All right, man. Well, please shout out your book, shout out your podcast, shout out all your socials. Thank you so much for doing this. Just let the people know where they can find you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at JJ from the Bronx. I do more tweeting, even though I hate Twitter, than Instagram because I'm not really incredibly attractive to be on Instagram. I'm more of a wordsmith. And you can find my book, A Stray Dog for Christmas. You can follow Suzy at Susan Putman, SUZYN Pupman. If you want to see a lot of just like dog pictures and like my cute daughters. A Stray Dog for Christmas. If you just Google it, it'll come up anywhere. It'll be in the show notes and all that fun stuff. I appreciate if you buy a book. It's a perfect Christmas gift as you start to think of, you know, if you have kids, obviously you've got to get all sorts of stuff. You start to look at some of those, like what are the additional, like smaller gifts. Books are always great. We buy our kids a lot of books. You got nieces, you got nephews, you know, because you don't have kids. Family's going to judge you over the holidays anyway. Bring a book. People like that. They look up to you on that. And then, you know, obviously, you know, I want to sell a lot of books, but the more books I sell, the more we get to spread the word of this story. We get to save more dogs. We're doing a lot of stuff partnering with different rescues. We've got a bunch of stuff coming up in Philly, some stuff in New York. We're looking, you know, it starts to expand. So enough people buy enough books, we get to do a lot of good in the world. You know, and just like overall message, if you, I just had this weird thing happen and I got to reach over 100 million people, articles all over the world. And so just know, like, you can, from your small part of the world, you can impact a lot of people. That's the message, you know, adopt, don't shop. And then that's the message for kids. I'm just a dude. I failed 8th grade English and now I have a book.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing, man. Come back on anytime. We'll talk about it more. And we'd love to have you. This was awesome.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in to the Riverfront. Shouts to our Patreon family, without who this would not be possible. Please tell your friends, subscribe, like, follow, do all those good things, and give us a little bit of bump. So shout out to Adam Dunn. Shouts out to Lisa Alberto Bonilla. Shouts to Wayne Kranchicki and Eli Cash. For Jack and for Luke Weaver, this is Nate Dawson saying so long, Cincinnati.